Lenses are extremely expensive, and that's because of the technology in them. But what if you remove all their autofocusing motors, their image stabilization, and even their ability to talk to the camera? Well, you're left with this. This is a Nikon 50mm f1.8, and it's over 40 years old. Today, I'm in the studio and I'm ready to shoot some portraits with it. Amanda, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to quickly interrupt and tell you how I mounted this 40-year-old lens to my Sony a7 IV. The mount I'm using is by a company named Earth, and they make mounts for any type of lens and any camera. Now, typically with adapters like this, you lose autofocusing capabilities, but that doesn't matter because this lens is fully manual. Even if I wanted to adjust my aperture, I have to do that using this aperture ring on the outside of the lens. Let's take a few more shots and then we'll jump into Lightroom and we'll see how the photos turned out. Keep bouncing off like each foot, like side to side, yeah. Perfect. Okay, so we are back at the home studio, just about to hop into Lightroom after shooting portraits with the 40-year-old Nikon 50mm f1.8. So I did take photos with two different lenses. I will have to go through and find which ones were taken with the new lens and which ones were taken with the old ones. But it won't be hard because if we look at one of these photos, it doesn't tell us any information about the focal length, the aperture that we shot it with, or anything like that. And that's because, like I said, these old lenses don't really communicate with the camera. Whereas my new lenses, when I take a photo with them, it'll actually tell me the focal length, it'll tell me the aperture I shot it with, and all of that. So you can see right off the bat that the old lens has like a greenish tint to it. The image is also a little bit more flatter. So if we look at this photo right here, these were taken with my new lens. And then if we look at these photos, these were taken with the old lens. The sharpness is also softer, which is something I actually like. Now, one thing I will say about manually focusing with a vintage lens on a modern body is that it's very hard to see what is in focus and what isn't in focus. And to fix that, I had to turn on focus peaking to see what I actually was getting in focus. Now, the cool thing about vintage lenses is that they're so cheap. You can pick up this exact lens on eBay for only like $60. Now, I know when you're comparing that to a Nifty 50, it's not that big of a difference, but because they're so old, all vintage lenses are cheap, not just this one. Just look at the 35mm f2 that Canon sells for $700 and this vintage 35mm f2 that only sells for $70. The reason why vintage lenses are becoming more popular and popular is because they filter light differently than modern lenses. Vintage lenses lack that protective coating that a lot of modern lenses have, and without that protective coating, you get a lot of amazing light flares, haze, and even different colors coming in your photos. I love how these photos turned out taken with this lens. They have this film look to them even though they were not shot with film. They still have that vintage look to them. They're not overly saturated or overly contrasty. They have this hazy look to them and they're not overly sharpened. It doesn't have this sharpness to it where you can see every single pore, and if there's blemishes, you have to spend hours retouching. Instead, it's only sharpened in the larger details where we actually want that sharpness to be. So we have sharpness around her face here, around the chin, around her lips, the nose, and the eyes. But then when you look at the medium and smaller size details, like actually the pores and stuff on her face, we don't have any of those. I think the bokeh and the background blur I'm getting with this lens is absolutely insane. And to be honest, I think I'm gonna be shooting with this lens for more of my portraits. Personally, if I wanted a lens just for portraits, I would pick myself up one of these, pick myself up an adapter, and that would be the only lens I would rock forever. There would be no need to spend $3,000 on a lens when I can get photos like these for less than $100. Like honestly, look how good these photos turned out. If you're a beginner photographer and you're on a budget, or maybe you just have $500 and you want to get a collection of lenses rather than just one lens, or maybe you just hate the look of over sharpened modern lenses, I would highly recommend looking into vintage lenses. eBay is a great place to find vintage lenses. You can almost find any lens you want, but Facebook Marketplace and thrift stores are also a good place to check. You might even already have a film camera with lenses, and all you need to do is buy an adapter, which by the way is linked in the description down below if you were thinking about picking one up. Just remember to double check the mount on your camera and match it with the mount on the adapter, and check the mount of the lens and get the adapter for that. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. If you have any questions on which adapter is right for your camera and your lens, leave a comment down below and I'll try my best to get to it. If you found this video useful, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell to be notified when I post a new video, and I'll see you in the next one.